Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are excited to be here with our friend today, Jim Dernocoeur, to talk more about his float spa. Yes, we're talking to him here today live on the show. If you're here on the podcast, he's also on the Zoomcast. And again, he's the owner of the Med Spa, and it's called True Rest Float Spa, based out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Welcome to the show today. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Great. Tell us a little bit about the spa and what you have to offer.
Well, we've been here for about 7 years, and it is an experience that you come in to enjoy, where each pod is in its own separate suite with a shower, and it's private. And you float in about 10 or 12 inches of skin temperature water that has over 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt. So it actually has more concentration than the Dead Sea. So you float like a cork. And the idea is to reduce the stimulus around you so that you can relax and get muscle recovery and pain relief and things of that nature from it. You spend about 50 minutes to 60 minutes a session in the pod. So it's quite a wonderful experience.
Wow. Okay. First and foremost, where's your location and how can we contact you?
We're in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We're at 6400 Holly Avenue Northeast, and there's the email where you can do at albuquerque@truerest.com. And then, of course, we have the phone number here, which I want to make sure I get it correct. It's 505-832-7014.
Perfect. And is there any social media pages we should be aware of?
If you go to truerest.com and then look up our location here in Albuquerque, you can go there as well. And in fact, you can schedule a float if you'd like right on the website.
Perfect. And that's TRUEREST.com. Well, before we get to talk more about all the benefits of this float and, what you do, I want to know more about you. Would you mind sharing a little bit of your background? Tell us about,
Sure.
just
Well,
about you and
sure.
how we got here. Thank you.
I'm a physician assistant, and I've worked in emergency medicine for, about 40 years, both as a paramedic and as a physician assistant. And so most of my background has been in medicine. My wife, who's also a co-owner, is a nurse, and she's worked in oncology as well as home health care. So we both kind of bring that medical focus to the spa.
Wow. So you guys now obviously working in medicine. How did you learn about the spa, the float spa and the benefits of it, which we're going to get into? How did you get introduced to it?
Well, it was interesting. My wife was kind of looking for an opportunity to do a business, and then she discovered the float spa, and she says, "What do you think about this?" And actually, I used to do flotation when I was a paramedic in Denver,
Oh my gosh.
and that's how I knew about it, was when I first learned about it and did it in the early pods, which were kind of almost like a coffin looking, as opposed to the beautiful spas we have now. But it was, the benefit was great because, as obviously in emergency medicine, it can be sometimes stressful, and to be able to use flotation to manage the stress was really helpful for me.
Wow. Well, tell us what it is to float. People might not even understand what floating is. Let's break it down to them. Thank you.
Well, when you talk about true rest, rest is actually an acronym. So it's reduced
Oh,
environmental stimulus therapy.
okay.
And like I said, the idea is that once you're in the pod, because the water is skin temperature, after you've been in there for a bit, it's hard to know where you end and the water begins, so that you're actually kind of isolating yourself. When you think about it, every day we're bombarded with stimulus, there are emails and phone calls and text messages
Yeah.
and people honking the horn and all these different things. And we never actually take a time to kind of stop, relax,
Mm-hmm.
and reduce ourselves from all that stress. And that's what this does. And by doing that, then your body can trigger what's referred to as homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body's ability to bring itself back to balance. And
Okay.
what you're trying to do is allow your body to bring itself back to balance so that you feel more refreshed and relaxed.
Ooh. I've never floated before. So for someone like me, I've heard about it, being in New York, a lot of people do it. What about for those that they're a little apprehensive? Could you walk us through the process of what we have to
Sure.
do, what we can expect? Because that brings me
Sure.
anxiety to try something new, but I want to hear more.
Sure. Well, the thing that most people are concerned about when they first think is I'm going to be claustrophobic. And once
Yeah.
they realize is that they have control, they can keep the light on, turn the light off, open the lid, close the
Okay.
lid, things of that nature, so that they're in control. So the process is for the first time floaters, we can bring them in. We do a short video just to give them an idea what to expect. You go into the suite, you shower before you get into the pod, and then you float. We do have what we call halos, which if you want to use as a pillow in there, you don't
Okay.
have to because your head will float.
Okay.
Some people don't trust it, so they kind of keep holding their head up. So this allows them to relax their neck. And then we have some music, so you can have music. Most of the time I like it just a little bit in the beginning, and then at the end to let me know, and the rest of it is quiet. But if you want to have music throughout, you can, or if you want no music, that's fine as well. So it kind of gives you that experience to relax. Now, the other thing that happens, which is interesting, is initially people say, "Well, I can't be in there for an hour. That's too long." And then what they'll do is they'll go in there, and then all of a sudden the music comes on at the end and they're like, wait a minute, that wasn't an hour. I
It's
can't believe that
over.
was an hour. Yeah, exactly. It happens all the time.
See? Okay, well, let's get into the benefits of float. Would you mind sharing a little bit of that?
Sure. Sure. It's interesting. It was initially started in the 50s with
Really?
studying whether people could
Okay.
manage being cut off from stimulus. And there was
Okay.
actually psychologic studies to see if people could do that. Actually, NASA did that as well.
Okay.
But actually, what they found is people are getting benefits from it. So now there's a good research to show that it has benefit in many different areas. Obviously, one is stress management and anxiety. People with that stress or anxiety do very well with improvement. Post-traumatic stress disorder, we find it that it's very helpful there. In fact, the special forces in the U.S. Military use flotation to help reduce the post-traumatic stress disorder as well as help treat that as well. The other thing that's interesting is muscle recovery is also very
Okay.
benefited by floating. When you think a lot of people use the cryotherapy,
Yeah.
which the idea with cryotherapy is it causes all that vasoconstriction, and then once you step out, it dilates to bring all that blood supply to the muscles to help reduce the lactic acid and such. Flotation does the same thing, but it doesn't have to do the painful cold aspect of it. You can get the vasodilatation just by relaxing and floating in that skin temperature water. So it's good for muscle recovery. In fact, many of the NFL teams now have flotation tanks. We are using flotation for our local professional soccer team here, the New Mexico United.
Okay.
They use it as well. A number of the Olympic athletes use it as well for muscle recovery.
Wow. And how often do people come to float? What did you recommend?
Well, when you first start, we recommend that you do at least 3 floats because the first one, kind of what you were saying earlier, is you're kind of trying to get used to the idea
Yeah.
of I'm floating and get the idea how this works. The second time, you're kind of getting more used to it. It's easier. By the third time, you can really get the full benefit because you really have an idea of what you're getting into. So we usually suggest that they get at least 3 floats in before they decide whether or not this is for me.
Mm-hmm.
Then most people do it at least once a month. Some people do it more than that. We have some people that will float every week or sometimes multiple times a week. So it depends on what their needs are.
Great. Well, let's remind everyone all the ways we can connect with you. Would you mind sharing again, email, website, best forms of contact before we continue?
Sure, sure. The uh, email address is albuquerque@truerest.com. The phone number is 505-832-7014. And then we'd be more than happy to help set up a float for you.
Awesome. All right. Well, what else in particular did you want to share with your audience today about the benefits of float?
Well, the one thing they should know is if it's their first time float, that they need to come in a half hour early so we can do the video and things of that nature. After that, they can go directly to it. Other question that people often ask is, do I need to bring in a bathing suit or anything of that nature? No, most people float with no clothes on.
Mm-hmm.
And we provide everything else, the towels, the shampoo, the lotions, all that kind of stuff is here. The other thing that we have is what we refer to as our oasis room. So after you've had the float and you're relaxed, you can sit down here and drink some tea and relax and kind of ease yourself back into the high stress of daily life here. So that we have that as well.
Ah, now is there any package deals that you offer for our listeners? And we
We do.
have
We have we have a membership,
membership. Ah,
and that's the best way for people to float. We have, either one or two or four floats a month. And the nice thing about our membership is that if you say get two floats, you can share that with your spouse or your significant others. The other nice thing is if you're busy and you don't float that month, that will roll over to the next month, so you don't lose your floats. We do have some unlimited float packages as well. So people who want to just float as many times as they
and
want, they can do
and
that as well.
what's in the water? What type of salt is it that helps you float? Like, could you
It's
share?
it's it's Epsom salt.
Okay.
So it's not sodium salt like table salt. And the nice thing is that with table salt it would be very drying and such, and the Epsom salt is not. And people have been using Epsom salt for years for muscle aches and things of that nature. And sometimes people say, "Well, why can't I just put Epsom salt in my bath at home?" It's like, well, you don't put 1,000 pounds of Epsom salt in your bath at home, so you don't get that relaxation of floating and such. So it's also nice because it's not drying to the skin and such. You come out not feeling dry, but actually kind of silky when you get out of the tub.
Oh, well then, so basically you're experiencing this weightlessness, right?
Correct.
And oh my gosh, I've never done it. I'm excited to try this because I've heard so much about it. And I know my girlfriend always says she falls asleep every time. I'm like, seriously? She's like, yeah, I
A lot of
love it. I
people,
love it. A lot of athletes do this too. Could you share that? I've heard about
correct.
with a lot of,
Well, like I
prof-
said, one of the big ones is Steph Curry.
yep.
He uses,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, he has his own flotation spa that he has as well. So he uses that. And it's interesting. He talks about not only getting the muscle recovery that we talked about, but also he feels like it helps in increase focus. So one of the things that he's very good at is in the tough situations, he's able to continue to focus on the game well. And he attributes some of that to the flotation helps him get to the point where he can have that focus. So some people actually use it for creativity and such as well.
Really? Oh my
Mhm.
gosh.
Well, when you
Well,
think about it, the most creative time is when you're not thinking about the project. How many times have you tried to solve a problem? You go, I do this, and then later
yeah.
on, all of a sudden, it comes to you. Well, that's kind of what flotation does. It gives you that ability to just let your mind work on that problem, and all of a sudden, people come up with ideas or creative solutions while they're floating.
Yeah, you're right. All right, interesting. Well, being that this is new, well, at least, someone like myself,
Mhm.
I've heard about other things like immune system functioning. It helps with that too.
Um, and you're always going to hear people talk about, helping with immunity and things of that nature. But I think it's really hard to say. I haven't seen any really clear
Okay.
research to show that it helps with the immunity. But anything that helps kind of bring you back to balance is going to help with that. One of the more exciting things for me that there's an early study to show that this may be helpful adjunct to people who are being treated for anorexia, the true anorexia, which is a very difficult psychological problem to deal with. The people who truly have that are very difficult to treat. And there's some early research to show that this may be really beneficial to use as an adjunct to their therapy.
My goodness. Well, also, there's the mention of increased creativity, feelings of euphoria, and I was reading about sleep. It's really
Mhm.
helping people sleep better.
Yes. In fact, it's interesting. My wife, when she floats the next 3 nights, she sleeps much, much better. But that is all part of that, getting relaxation and getting that balance again. So, sleep is definitely benefited by this. There's a lot of people who will float later on in the evening to help them sleep that night, and it works very well for that.
Interesting. All right. Well, we still got 8 more minutes left in the show. We got plenty of
Sure.
time to discuss more about True Rest. And again, go to the website, TRUEREST. You can type in Albuquerque, New Mexico to find your exact location. So this is a chain, right? Because there's a whole bunch of these all
It
over the
is.
country.
Yeah, there's probably, I think we're about 40 of them now across the
Wow.
country. Um, and the one thing that I really drew me to it is obviously I have kind of a scientific bent on things, is that there's good clinical research to show that there's benefit. It's not just I did this, I felt better, and therefore it must be good. Most of the research has been done internationally, but there's more and more research now being done in the US. There's a research center in Hawaii. There's also one in Oklahoma City that they're doing research specifically on the benefits of flotation.
Ooh, wow. Well, I'm excited to try this, and for people out there who've never experienced anything like it, I was also on your site. There's also YouTube videos, right? So you could
Correct.
actually take a look, see the process. You could feel more comfortable with it,
Right.
and let me ask, is there do you recommend a certain music? Is there something for the atmosphere in there? Do people listen to their own music, or what do you do?
Well, they have the options. We have some music that we use, but if they want to bring in their own music, it can connect to the system so they can play their own music. And obviously, most people play a very relaxing music. Though it's interesting, there's some people come in and they listen to rock music while they're floating, which I think is counterintuitive to me, but they find that very beneficial.
Amazing. Now, when did you start this business?
We started about 7 years ago.
Let's talk a little about what happened during COVID, the pandemic. Could you share?
Oh, well, that was difficult for us. We were shut down for at least 3 months. And um, because it has the name spa and they thought it was very hands-on and very close touch, which it isn't. So it took a while for them to understand that it was okay for us to open and we could properly distance and such. The interesting thing was to me is that Maria and I both tried to put out good information because it was difficult during COVID because there was a lot
Yeah.
of misinformation. That we had people that actually joined as members during COVID, even though we were shut down to support us, which was very, very rewarding.
And after, you shut down, come back in, then you're realizing that this could be really good because people, mental health and anxiety and stress is that, being as a PA, you must know that's got to be huge, right? For people, I feel like this
Absolutely.
term anxiety and stress is something that we all talk about now so much. I didn't know so much about it till the pandemic. Could you talk about
Right.
that a little?
Right. Well, any level of stress can be benefited by flotation. And you're right, the pandemic brought out a lot of anxieties and stress
Mm-hmm.
for people, and it was difficult because there was so much conflicting information going on and such that people were unsure, and that made them very anxious. So once we opened up, we were able to provide this to people to help them with manage that stress that was going on. And that was it was rewarding for us to watch people benefit from flotation.
Wow. All right. Well, we still have 5 more minutes. What else about why people should float and what brings you into a float, a spa like yours? And what makes yours, would you say, more unique than maybe someone else's? Just, why do they come
Well,
to see you? You and your
well, the
wife are a
thing
great
is that
team.
no, that's okay. One of the things, obviously, that we pride ourselves on is making sure that we keep the spa relaxing and clean. And, one of the things that's really important for people is they could concern, are you
Yeah.
going to be, managing the water well? And we do, above and beyond for that. Each pod has its own filtering system that has filtered down to 5 microns. It has an oxidating system. It has UV. And every drop of water goes through that system at least 3 times between each float. So the water is always kept pristine. And that's, something that's obviously important to people. So making sure that it's not only comfortable, but it's clean helps that relaxation as well. So they don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, are they taking good care of this place?
Yeah, right. Oh my goodness. Well, for someone also, that's out there who wants this type of relaxation, and is there anything we should be aware of, medical conditions that we cannot, use the float room? Is there anything we should
Well,
be aware of?
the biggest thing would be is, if you have any kind of open source and that kind of stuff, because the salt
Okay.
will kind of burn and that kind of such. Um, I had one friend who wanted to float, but unfortunately had pretty reasonable psoriasis, and that was kind of uncomfortable for him to float because of the salt. So those kind of conditions can be
Okay.
difficult. We get a lot of questions about, if I have a pacemaker, can I float? Yes, you can float with the pacemaker. It's not a problem. The other people that benefit from flotation and have concerns are pregnant women.
Oh,
Pregnant women
yeah.
are concerned that can I float while I'm pregnant? And yes, not a
Good
problem. You can
question.
float. And the nice thing about that is when you think about it, it's one of the few times that
Yeah.
pregnant women can actually relax their back because otherwise they're carrying all this weight up front. So their back is always working. So it's a nice way for them to get some pain relief from that lower back pain that sometimes they get from carrying that weight and their shifting of their center of gravity.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And again, remind us how we can contact you. And yeah, well, this is exciting stuff. I can't wait to try it. I wish I lived closer to your location, but I will try it one day soon here, at least in New York.
There is one. I know we have a location in New Jersey, I think, which is close to New York, which you could
Yes, it
certainly
is. I have
try.
family there. Thank you so much. All
There
right.
you
Tell us
go.
again one more time how we find you.
So Albuquerque at truerest.com, or you can give us a phone call at 505-832-7014. And we
Perfect.
look
Thank
forward to
you.
seeing everybody.
Same here. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you here and looking
All
forward
right. Well,
to
thank you
we
for
thank you to all of our listeners. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back with more. Thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.